A new massive PricewaterhouseCoopers report just dropped. This 83-page report surveyed almost 13,000 people across the world on their readiness and interest for electric vehicles. What are some of the findings? Well, there is a strong interest in electric vehicles, with 30% having intention to buy one in the next 2 years. While the EV owners today are mainly the high-income, middle-aged urban males, it appears the demographics of those with an intention to buy, it represents 70% of the demand in the next 2 years, is now shifting towards a mass market. I've got Brian White joining us. He is a regular on this channel, and he has his own YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend. Welcome, Brian.
Welcome to you, Herbert. It's great to be here. I'm excited about this topic.
All right. It's wonderful whenever we get a chance to look at so many slides and graphs and information. So this news came back, which is Pricewaterhouse did this survey of 13,000 people. It's the fourth edition that they've ever done this. And some of the big information that they have is, that they looked at EV owners, EV prospects, and EV skeptics. In this slide here, it shows here that of the 12,800 people that responded to their survey, in North America, which is circled here, 5% of folks answered the survey were EV owners, 54% were EV prospects, 41% were EV skeptics. But if you compare this across the board to the kind of a total, North America is lagging in terms of what's happening right now in ownership in both Asia Pacific and Europe, who are further ahead in both people who are owners and people that want to buy, prospects and less skeptics. Any kind of thoughts on that, Brian?
Well, yes. One of the slides we're going to get to later, I'm sure, says that, because this is a great report, but it's long, is that most people who have converted to EVs have done so via word of mouth, via somebody telling them, hey, you got to get in and take a drive with me, buddy. Because once that happens, butts in seats are what sell EVs. So it snowballs. So if you're only at 5% versus 8%, yeah, there's going to be more skeptics and fewer and more people who've just never had the experience themselves yet. So that's makes sense to me, even though it's quite disappointing.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. And so, first of all, I forgot to mention that I found this report because of Tesla Boomer Mama, Alexandra Mersh. She always has her eye on the best reports, but this one is massive, 83 pages. And so we've taken time. So thank you, Alexandra. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the EV owners first, and then we'll look at the EV prospects next. So if you look at the EV owners, they're typically at this point, currently, the younger, the wealthier, more male, more males are buying it, and they are more of the urban folks, the people who have access to private parking. So if you can see here that the gross annual income is 91,000 euros in the EV owners. They're older, 43 years old, and then the gender is more male, and then urban. But if you see the skeptics, it's primarily more female, and they're the lower income, and they're the older females as well. Any thoughts on just demographics of who's buying the cars now and who's going to buy it in the future?
No, I mean, I get a skewed perspective because when I go to events, everyone is older, but that's because those are the people who have time to go to events, often during the week when younger people are still working. I am surprised that there's so much hesitancy among people with lower income. I guess there's still the enduring notion that EVs are too expensive, and they no longer really are. You can argue that all cars are too expensive, and I see people saying that, oh, even if Tesla comes out with $25,000 car, that's still too much money. Hey, that's way less than the average auto cost. If the problem is that you can't afford any car, that's not an EV problem. That's just has more to do with the economy, I guess, or maybe individual circumstances. So yeah, a little bit of a surprise there, but nothing a little bit of education can't overcome.
Okay. So now let's jump a little bit to who the prospects are. And if I take a look at who the prospects are, and we're going to go back and forth here. So there are 6 personas that the PricewaterhouseCoopers took a look at who are future electric vehicle customers. And they looked at it based on 4 behavioral dimensions: environmental consciousness, technology confidence, price sensitivity, and car usage. So you can see the 6 different kind of categories. And it turns out that the tech enthusiasts, the dreamers, and the luxurious and the pragmatics. They're the ones that consistently show highest intention to buy in the near future. Tech enthusiasts, dreamers, I think pragmatics were next here. And so what they're saying with this kind of group that who are the intentions of buying, they are actually gonna. This is mass market. That's what they've said. This is no longer going to be just to what we just said, which is the male, older, urban, younger males who have money. This is now spreading out to these key key groups. Thoughts on that?
I would absolutely agree. Luxurious is only going to get you so far. As Lucid is discovering, their numbers came out today and it was yesterday now, and it was 1,500 for the quarter again. Their ceiling is 6,000 units a year. That's not good enough. But once, and of course, tech enthusiasts, that's a very big market, but it's not enough to get you there. But once you get the pragmatic people in, the people who sit down and say, look, I just need a car that's cheap and reliable, and they crunch the numbers and say, this works. Now you've got a mass market car. Now you can get enough of them out there to start bringing everyone else on board too. So this whole report is very well put together, very clever people putting it together. And it's so great that Alexandra found it.
Okay. So some of the points that Alexandra made are such. She said that, first of all, 30% of have intention to buy an EV in the next 2 years. The EV owners, as we've said, is already high income, middle aged. But the EV prospects have 20% less income than EV owners. So that is one of the key things, right? Affordability is king. They need to lower the price to get more of the prospects who want to buy to be able to buy.
But they have, and they continue to. So that's already underway, and that's why we're seeing such an explosion. Is it's not enough that the Model Y is the most desirable car in the world. We've seen price cuts all over the globe as production continues to increase. We've seen incentives come back for most buyers that have the incentive alone on a $50,000 car is 15%. So that gets you most of your 20%. That's where all your pragmatic buyers came from, I imagine, is saying, I need that extra 20%. Where am I going to get it? Gas savings is one thing, but I need some cash. And there you go. It's how it works.
Now, if we compare the people who are owners again, but compared to the different kind of owners across the globe, North America is really lagging behind. So if you look at this, North American buyers, as we've mentioned several times here, they're the richer people who are kind of younger, 37, mostly male, and they live in urban. But if you look at Europe and Asia Pacific, they are, they're getting to be the people with less income. They're becoming less, the older people are actually starting to buy. It's becoming sort of a split between males and females, and also kind of less reliant on just being in the urban areas. And so tell me a little bit of your understanding of why Asia Pacific and Europe seems to be kind of a different maturity in the EV adoption rate.
So I would disagree. 100,000 in Asia is more than 120,000 in the US. Those are still rich buyers. And there was another, and in Asia it was 99% urban buyers. So I think the big disconnect is between Europe and the rest of the world rather than the US and the rest of the world. In Europe, you're seeing wider, broader adoption, although you are seeing a lot better gender balance, certainly in Asia. And why is it such a predominantly male vehicle? That's a very strange question. I do not have a speculation on that. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, just the tech, right? The tech capable, generally people who are more interested in tech, I guess, cars, right? Too, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, but like I said, it's in North America. That's the case, but not in Asia or Europe. So it's a very particular to US that it's mostly male at this point. So here's another very interesting stat here that mostly today, who's buying the EVs? It's mostly people who are buying it through dealerships. Again, you can see the Asia Pacific, Europe, and North America. It's primarily 69, 74% are buying it through dealership. mainly for premium and luxury cars, is who's buying it through the online process. This is interesting. What? Why would that be? And then how they buy it, look at the percentage here. It's shocking that the US more like cash, and then finance and so forth more in Europe. Yeah, so but apparently what these guys are saying is that it is online is gaining traction, and it's and of course this is all cars, all electric vehicles, not just Tesla. And of course we know that Tesla is pretty well probably one of the few that is selling it through an online option.
So go ahead and leave that slide up. What I would say is the reason the US has such a high number of premium cars being sold online is because Tesla is king
Yeah.
in the US, and all of Tesla's sales fall into that 27%. What's another question I would have is, in Asia, is the dealership model comparable to the US? Are they owned that
Hmm.
way, or does a Tesla store in China count as a dealership? It could. I don't know. Because BYD, I know, runs their own showrooms. I know a number of Chinese brands run their own showrooms. Do those count as dealerships by some definition? I don't know the answer to that. That part I'm less concerned about. I just need to see dealerships go away. For those who don't know, I just placed an order for a Model Y on Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was, and did so during a video. It was that easy. You don't do that with other cars. I would never subject my viewers to having to watch me go through the process of buying a legacy car from a dealership. That would be painful. Join me for a root canal, won't you? So it's a whole different thing.
Okay. And then this other stat here is satisfaction with purchasing an electric vehicle. The EV owners mostly satisfied, right? So if you can see on the left here, across the board, Asia, Europe, or North America, it's around 88% satisfaction, 84%, 87% satisfied with their current EV, and only 8% or 10% or 6% are neither satisfied and dissatisfied, and then 7% in Europe and in America is dissatisfied with the current EV. And then this is even more shocking: is would you switch back to an ICE car after buying an electric vehicle? And the US, 49% said that
Very
they
weird.
would switch back. Now, I did see somewhere, and I'm searching for that stamp, but I thought I read in this report that said that these are mostly non-Tesla buyers, that the Tesla buyers are
Oh,
much less likely to want to switch back to the ICE. And so that makes sense now, right? Because you buy an electric vehicle, you hear it from these guys, but they have a lot of problems with the legacies and the other options here. But I need to find that stat. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you remember recently I think it was the transportation secretary decided to do a cross-country trek in a
Mm,
little caravan of EVs, and they didn't bring a Tesla. They brought all the other brands. For some reason, they left out the one with the best charging network, the one with great range and the best selling. That they just left it out. And they said, "Boy, this whole experience is not very good." Well, I guess it's great that the people in charge of transportation know that they have work to do to improve it for the masses. But at the same time, yeah, if you're not in a Tesla, that is pretty weird that you would.
you're
Yeah,
you're correct,
yeah.
Brian. Take a look at this. This table says exactly what you just said. So if you look at the right side, what are the main issues you're facing with your electric vehicles? You can see long charging time, lack of public charging network, limited range, which are all kind of related. And if you look down
Yeah.
below here, these two dots are the top two reasons. So in North America, it's lack of charging state network and limited range are the top two reasons why they're dissatisfied. Well, that explains why it's not typically Tesla that's relying on that. That's not the issue there.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's great that you made it look like eyeballs. That's very cartoonish
that's
and
not me.
fun.
This is Farzad. He did these circles.
Oh, I see.
I love you. So if you
Just
take a
add
look
some
at this
angry
again,
eyebrows and it's great.
yeah. So I keep trying to tell folks this is still the case. Okay, this is the critical table, which is what are the key driving factors when buying when buying an electric vehicle, purchasing criteria, um, when buying private charging infrastructure, price, charging speed. Oh no, I mixed up. That this is for the buying the charging infrastructure. I thought it was buying a car.
Hmm.
It's still very similar. Its price is the number one reason. So in this case, it's still price.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And then yeah, so those are very good tables. Any kind of thoughts in terms of like stats that you wish you would look at? Because we do have 83 pages here. We have so much to cover here. Anything else that you think is important?
No, the big takeaway to me was word of mouth is the key. Butts in seats. A Tesla test drive is the most dangerous test drive you'll ever take because you will eventually buy one. Maybe that day, or in my case, maybe sometime later. But
Yeah.
it's going to happen. That's all it takes is the experience. And it would be great if we could get better education on the folks renting it from Hertz. There was a gal I spoke with who met with a gentleman who was charging his rental car at the supercharger, and he was so frustrated because no one had told him stop at 80%. And once you get past 80%, he's like, gosh, I'm going to be here for another 40 minutes. That's ridiculous. And she had to explain to him, no, just leave. You're done. You've got enough juice to get where you're going. This is the slow part. Don't do this. So there needs to be a little bit of education, and that comes from word of mouth too. When your coworkers get one, they can ask you questions and you can answer them. But it's going to take a little bit of time.
Well, got another table here to corroborate exactly what you just said. So, how did you begin to consider buying an EV? Of the survey respondents, 42% said it was word of mouth, and that's consistent across the other three regions. Basically, globally, it was word of mouth, and 42%. And I think that speaks to that, electric vehicles as the kind of a misunderstanding, miscommunication of what's going on and how to use an electric vehicle, all the issues there that people think that they have when they don't really. And then media and advertising is only at 22%. Brand loyalty. This is interesting. Brand loyalty is very powerful, very powerful. So it's very shocking that people are switching from these legacies, big brands to Tesla, hearing that they're better. So there you go. This is kind of the list here. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm surprised that sales consultant made the list at all, but especially I'll tell you, I don't think I've talked to a Tesla salesperson necessarily, but I've talked to a lot of service center representatives and managers and whatnot. And when I had questions about my buying process, I didn't call a salesman. I called the service center manager who I know. And he was happy to walk me through it all, get me the answers I needed. And he even said, make sure, here's the step-by-step to make sure you get your referral credit done right. And he asked, well, who are you going to use? And I said, oh, Phil from the Oregon Owners Club. He goes, do you have his code? I said, no. He said, I'll send it to you. So he pulled up the referral code for me and sent it over. And they're just so helpful. And he knows what's going on. He can see what cars are in transit. And he just made the process painless. I have never had that experience with a car dealer before. And it's because Bo is not a car dealer. He's a service manager. And the difference couldn't be more clear.
Okay. So here's the last chart I will share because it's, I think, very interesting, which is what are the main reasons that make people buy an electric vehicle? What this makes them decide? The top three drivers is cost, convenience, and the environment. So it's fuel economy, cost per mile. So knowing that, when gas prices go up and they go, oh, I can actually, my operating cost is lower. Flexibility to recharge at home, which is weird because very few people know this at all, that you can charge it at home. Very few people know this. I'm shocked that this even came up. Reduced environmental impact is actually third, which is shocking. You think that would be number one. And all the other benefits like overall maintenance costs, people just don't realize it. They're there. It's there.
Very strange. The driving experience is wonderful, but I guess if you have a Bolt, it's just a car.
Yeah. I mean, so, and the definition of cost was fuel economy, cost per mile, instead of just price of the car. Because I know the price of the car, this was what I was trying to drive at earlier, was most critical. Until it's price parity with ICE cars, then that's when all of this will just take off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. thank you for walking me through that, Brian. That was fantastic. There's very good information there. We didn't go through every single slide. Thank you so much, Brian. Follow him at MyTeslaWeekend on YouTube. Thank you.